Hello, everybody. All right. Merry Christmas. I know my hair's all really crazy, but I don't care. Well, I do and I don't. What can I do? Nothing. So it is Christmas week. Realized, yeah, Christmas is on Sunday, which means that people are going to be heading to their families and their friends and all these different occasions and outings and parties. And that's great. I mean, more power to you. Parties and all that stuff are fun things to do, especially if you can afford it in body, mind, and spirit. And so, I just got to leave you guys with a little bit of something to think about. And that is the power of suffering. Okay, the power of suffering. So, yeah, my dog had to suffer a little bit over Thanksgiving to deal with her evolution. Okay, because of she's paying for the sins of her father, paying for the sins of her mother, paying for the sins of her prior owners, as well as the veterinary system. Okay, so she had to deal with a lot of stuff. And then finally, I brought her back from the dead, when you think about it, and she is doing amazing. Okay, that little tumor that was okay, did get to be a little bit bigger, but now it's getting softer. And what I'm speculating what's going on inside is there is a conversion process. There is a fornication, and the fornication is the good cells converting the bad cells, which is why then her underbelly is getting softer, because you can even feel the difference in the skin. It's like new skin is developing under her belly. New skin, and it's soft and it's smooth. And it's a little bit fat, but not really fat. It has suppleness to it. It's like new skin. And so it's the food that has the power. And of course, pulling out the old programming. And so I was reading through my newsfeed and I saw, a Hellhound Variant. Now, some of you, of course, can Google that. And Hellhound is mythical creatures. Not really, but they are creatures that cause a lot of chaos within a community, immune system, whatever. And it caused a lot of fire and electricity and a lot of heat. Okay, hence the name Hellhound. And so, yeah, when you have higher frequencies, because they're going to be raising the frequencies, obviously. I mean, you don't get a pandemic without a change in the environment. Because, yeah, you could have one person give somebody, a variant of the flu, and the person stays home and it doesn't get spread and whatever. But it's when the whole environment becomes exponentially aggressive and it brings up everybody's versions of the flu all at once. And that's when you have an aggressive pandemic. Because someone getting a flu over there in Pakistan, I'm not going to get the guy's flu in Pakistan over here in America. I'll get some kind of version of it, but it won't be the same thing. What I'll get over here is based upon the frequencies bringing up some version of the flu in my town. And then this is why we have such aggressive pandemics, because the environment has changed. The particles have accelerated. There is an accelerated energy in the universe, and that's causing people to then go through an evolution, go through a senescence, a deterioration, an autophagy. And when you're breaking down and releasing fragments of yourself, somebody will pick it up. They will have to upgrade. And they also will be taken on or going through their own fragmentation and releasing. And go through that process, that painful release, as well as the painful exposure to somebody else. Okay? I mean, you can't say that you don't get something from somebody else. Of course you do. Okay, that's how herpes gets passed around. That's how AIDS gets passed around. It is human to human transmission. Now, there could be aggressive catalysts in the environment that make that transmissive potential even more aggressive, and then you'll get a very aggressive version of that potential. And so that's why some people have a severe form of a disease versus someone who has a less severe form of a disease. And so it's all about the energy that it was exposed to at the time of its transmissibility. And so that's why the flus weren't really that bad in the past, but now this pandemic versus the flu is different. COVID-19 versus the flu is different. And we all were feeling stuff. You can't deny that you didn't feel anything the last couple years. Even if it was just a freaking cold to you, you felt something. So we all experienced something within our immune system, some worse than others. Other people died from it, other people just got a cold from it. And as we're going through this aggressive autophagy process of exponential evolution, people are breaking down systematically. To when 5 or 6 years from now, as we are going through this crazy ass climate change, those who are healthier in 2021, 2022 are going to be deteriorating exponentially in like 2025, 2026, 2027. Well, that's the aging process. Well, yeah, it is, but it's accelerated aging. Maybe the last 5 years or the last, how many years you could have had more time. You didn't have to age so excessively. But in climate change, the aging process is accelerated. Okay, so Merry Christmas. Hellhound Variant is coming up. And thank you, Karen. You're so funny on your Facebook, Karen. I like reading your stuff because you are humorous. And so, Merry Christmas, Hellhound Variant. And definitely the polar opposites are at the surface right now. If you had a second chance at life, what would you do differently? And that's the thing about the Christmas Carol, is that you now are getting another chance at life. Like you seriously are. Because that's what the whole thing with Scrooge was, that he had to go back and visit all the different ghosts of his past. Because he was taking shit for granted. He was being a Scrooge and wasn't allowing, Mickey Mouse, if you're looking at the Disney version, to go home to his family. He was just enslaving his poor employee. And so, yeah, the system decided to then teach him a lesson and have him look at Marley's ghost and all these different ghosts of the past to then remind him what he used to be like and how he can look at life differently. And then get a new lease on life, a different relationship, a better relationship, because he was able to face the past and deal with it. And it was scary. That was the suffering, is him going through all those different ghosts. Was it 12 ghosts or something? It's been a while since I watched it. But he had to go and revisit so many ghosts of his past. And so Christmas is all about understanding Scrooge. And if you had a second chance at life, I bet you would appreciate the world in such a different way. Not take it for granted. And a lot of people out there take this world for granted because they never had to suffer, really. Yeah, they suffer aches and pains, but they never had a diagnosable condition that would get in the way of their daily life. That's why people who have never really been sick don't understand what's going on, and understand why those who have been sick don't want to ever go there again and are doing everything they can not to ever revisit that past again. But it's going to take someone to suffer that much to appreciate what they have to do to not suffer. And some people get lucky and they die suddenly and they never have to suffer. And so that's the other side of it, is the died suddenlies are being relieved from the suffering. But who's suffering in lieu of those who died suddenly? It's their friends and their family. And you're watching all around you. People are freaking out because their friends and family were relieved of the suffering because they died suddenly. There's two sides to it. And so then if you don't want to die suddenly, then you're going to have to suffer a little bit and face your predisposed issues. And it's a transition process. It's not something you do cold turkey. It's not something that you just get automatically like in a month or 2 years. It's taken me 6 years to get to this point, though I could have probably cut down the suffering when you think about it, the excessive suffering, in probably half the time if I just suffered so much in the beginning and really, or had the climate change to bring up my predisposed issues. But since I used so much of the J juice, I cured everything, so I didn't suffer like I should have. But the last 2 years with the climate change, even the J juice wasn't enough to hold back everything. And so I really had to suffer the last 2 years. And it was welcome because I purposely locked myself down in my house. I didn't visit anybody. I hardly went out. And I faced every single demon. And there were a lot of demons that I had to face. And you saw me do it publicly. It wasn't like doing it under wraps and behind closed doors. No, I'm like, here, this is what it's like to freaking suffer. And it can be really aggressive. My dog had to suffer. But now you see her holding the line. But we're on the other side of it. Before, that thing inside of her was eating her out from the inside. That's why she was so skinny. Now they've been power feeding her. Finally, she has now a second chance at life, and that little power pack she has is also then growing with her, but eventually it will convert everything into her. It just takes time, but she's not in pain. And I touch it, and it's like, I don't want to show it to you now because I don't want people freaking out. I mean, it's not so huge, but you're like, whoa, people do freak out when things look anomalous. So I'll show you pictures later, but I want to see I want to see the progression of this. And so that's what my goal is this wintertime, is to then make sure that my dog doesn't get eaten alive by the thing inside of her, that it does grow with her and then eventually assimilate to her, and she assimilate to it. And we never have to revisit this crap again, because that's what suffering tells you, is never ever to get to that place again. Just like the rainbow and Noah's Ark and the flood, is the rainbow says, okay, that's God's promise. It will never have a 40-day and 40-night flood of the whole world. Okay? Well, suffering is, you promising yourself never to ever get that bad again, and to teach your kids, not to get that bad again, because if your kids don't figure it out, they'll suffer and pass away, and there'll be that no one else will have to suffer behind them, because they probably won't be around long enough to drop any more children to then suffer after them. And so you parents, and also children who are parents to your own selves, it's time that maybe you redirect and find a way to manage your suffering so it keeps you alive, not destroy you in the process. And so thermodynamics. See, my husband and I were talking. My husband is still pretty, he's still skeptical of all this. I mean, he's actually my biggest fan and worst critic. Okay? Because he's right next to me, and he supports me on one end, and he's like, he doesn't get it. And I understand that. But that's the thing, is he's like, well, you're so afraid to die. I'm like, no, I'm not afraid to die. I just know what's working against me. It's the environment. I'm trying to live. And so there's two ways to look at what I'm doing. People think I'm so afraid of death. No, if an asteroid came down, hold on, sweetie. Ooh, sugar. Okay, you're a good girl. All right, good girl. Yes, eat your bone. She's eating her bone. Holy crap. But if asteroid came down, I didn't want her to do something under the table. But if an asteroid came down and took out all of Ohio, shit, I'd be dead. Okay, there's nothing to fear. Even asteroids coming really close, I wouldn't be afraid. I'd be like, hey, just take me now. Whatever. I can't do anything about it. But if I can do something about it, and it's just the environment that's aggressive, what can I do about it? I feed the energy and pull out the old programming, because I understand evolution. I understand proteins. I understand viruses and hydra and microbes. I understand all of that. So I understand what's going on. So I'm not afraid of death. Okay? What I'm trying to do is counteract it with life. I'm trying to feed myself. I'm trying to survive in an aggressive environment. So no, I'm not afraid to die. Those out there are afraid to die. They're afraid to get the vaccines. They're afraid to do anything. They're afraid of the government. They're afraid of the other political party. They're afraid of so many things. They're afraid to die, but yet they're doing everything they can to destroy themselves. That's the irony of it all. And so thermodynamics is always working against you, and you always have to counterbalance the environment's intentions to cannibalize you. And that also means your friends and family. If your friends and family are just taking from you, at some point you're gonna have to put the hammer down and say, it's no more. I can't do anything more for you. You gotta now have to help yourself. Okay? And so trapping negative damaged energy within you, as well as having your energy surgically taken out of you, is helping the environment destroy you faster. And so not only is the autophagy and the evolution, the climate change, the frequencies are ripping people apart, literally, but then they feel stuff and they don't want to feel it. So what do? They go and get more energy out of their body, taken out, more life force taken out of their body. Whether it's oncology, radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, anti-inflammatories, trapping negative energy in you, so that way you supernova and superimplode and have it cannibalize you. I mean, the medical and the holistic system actually do euthanasia. But a slow euthanasia. It's not like a quick, like you see with that chick, I forget her name. She was paralyzed and she had no quality of life, and so eventually they had to pull the plug. No, the medical holistic system does a progressive euthanasia. Systematically, they darken your life force. They cut off your life force. Organ by organ, system by system, cell by cell, at your own asking. And so, in my opinion, the medical and the holistic system is a state-sanctioned euthanasia. My dog is coming back to life, and the energy inside of her is actually being converted into her next evolution. I was elated, even though last night she was a little energetic because she was breathing really hard in the middle of the night, and this is where all the activity happens in the middle of the night. That's why you have to understand, people either live or die. They don't either they die overnight or they survive the night. But at night, I hear her breathing hard, and then I just pet her, and then she just stops, okay? She does her circles on the bed because she's trying to get comfortable, because there's energy inside of her. But there's so much energy conversion going on inside of her, but it's keeping her alive. Until her body finally assimilates to all the energy, or the entities in the body, and they're also releasing, because I'm also pulling out the programming, and I'm also watching those long mucus strings come out of her in the morning. She's going to have to go through that energetic night, and until she's finally assimilated and she becomes the dog that she was meant to be. And so so that thing, even though it's a little bit of a ball, like it's like this, but you can feel the skin around it, which is like puffy, right? But it's new skin, it's new collagen. That's what makes those tumors hard, is the collagen. But that's also the programming for the next, that's all of your programming to keep you alive. That's what the golden compass was all about, was your spirit animal. It was your your next evolution. And so when the system is actively cutting out your next evolution, or trapping damaged cells in your body and then taking out the good cells, but I thought cancer wasn't good. Well, cancer has both good and bad. There's an energy conversion going on. Just like when you hang out with people, if you're very influential and people that you hang out with are not as influential, and you're able to overwhelm them, but with life, not with death. But when someone's bigger than me and they're all about death and they're trying to convert me to death, I have to walk away. Because if they don't have any boundaries and they're trying to convert me to death, then I got to walk away, because they would actually destroy me. And so sometimes you have to know what people's intentions are. And if they're trying to destroy you with their belief system, then you have to walk away. Okay? And so if there is more life in her, and I'm feeding her, I'm not starving her or doing anything oncological to her, then I'm giving her every opportunity to convert those damaged cells into something good. And that's why, I guess that's why I have a dog. To show myself and to show the world it's not just Jillian's theories. Jillian's making up shit. Jillian is such a vivid imagination. No. The universe bestowed the dog to me and named her Sugar, and me dealing with salt, so I could prove I could overcome all these frequencies and not sound like I'm hawking up a lung forever, because I hawked up a lung the last 2 years and you heard me. And now I have a dog who had so many tumors of the past, who is now revisiting them, because I just brought her back to life over Thanksgiving, and she has to revisit that stuff. And now, instead of oncologically taking everything out and using anti-inflammatories and tinctures and all that stuff, I'm just using food. Regular, processed, fresh food. Whether it's the canned, dog food, the high protein, the pedigree, and some of the kibble, and then leftover meat and milk and eggs and some cheese and some fruits and vegetables. And now my dog is getting a diverse amount of nutrition, and it's helping her evolution, and it's helping her become an amazing fucking dog. And she is. She's not wanting to pee in corners. If she can hold it now. Before the last the last couple months, shit, she was peeing over here, peeing over there, peeing in the bed. Now she just throws herself off the bed if she has to pee and tells me I got to go downstairs, and we go downstairs together. And if I don't get her downstairs fast enough because of whatever, if it's in the middle of the night, then she'll pee on the bathroom rug in the bathroom, because she sees that's where I go to the restroom. So I'm thinking that's why she's going in there instead of on the floor in my room. But there's so many places where she has peed on the floor that she could have peed, away from that rubber mat. That's my room. She could pee anywhere on the rug, but she chose to pee in the bathroom. And so I know that's a conscious thought because she has peed everywhere and she has, and so, I'm recognizing the choices she's making. I'm recognizing the progress and the intelligence. And so I can't discount that. So I know there's improvement. And that's the thing where owners have to have patience and know their animal, okay? Because your animals are trying to tell you stuff, but you've got to be in tune. And so and when you're having to deal with stuff, it's very hard to be in tune with an animal too, because you're also dealing with conflict and with pain and so I'll tell you, I got lucky that I got sick first, like really sick, and my dog was doing okay. She was holding the line, wondering why the hell I wasn't out of bed last summer, by the end of last summer. And so when she got sick, I took care of her. She took care of me, wondering if I was okay, and kept me company and stayed on the bed with me as I was watching Netflix or going to sleep, and then wondering why I'm not getting out of the bed and asking to go downstairs. So it made me move around because I had to move around. And so she took care of me the end of last summer. And so now I'm taking care of her. It's a quid pro quo. And we're going to have an amazing relationship because of it. Because I'm not going to destroy her. There's no reason to. And so, in my opinion, the medical and the holistic system and the veterinary system is a state-sanctioned euthanasia. Yeah, they bring shit to life, and they also can put stuff down, and they do systematically. So my dog is coming back to life. I said that. And so, anyway, so I will prove the medical and holistic system is a systemic euthanasia. And so this thing about power of suffering, I'm telling you, again, I was raised Jewish. And I remember, this is the thing, I was talking to myself, I was doing these dishes, and I'm just like, okay. I remember how I actually purposely chose to suffer. Well, yeah, I chose to suffer later versus right away. So I knew how to pick and choose my suffering. Now, what do you mean by that? Because when I was a kid, I didn't like doing homework. I hated homework. So I always rip my papers up or throw them away somewhere or whatever. Mom would ask, well, did you have any homework? It's like on a Friday. So I had 2 days to either be, to be homework free and to do whatever. And my mom would ask, do you have any homework? And I'm like, nope, no homework. And there was homework. And so I lied to her, actually bald-faced lied to her. And I knew it. And she's like, okay, I'm going to find out on Monday if you had homework. So you better come clean now. Do you have homework? And I'm like, nope, I don't have any homework. Because I'm like, I would rather buy me 2 days of freedom and know that I'm going to suffer on Monday than suffer right then and there and say, well, I had homework, but I ripped it up and it's somewhere out there, I don't know, in the bushes. And then have to suffer that wrath right then and there and have a crappy weekend. So I even knew how to pick and choose when I was going to suffer, because she told me, if I find out on Monday that you lied to me, all hell's going to break loose. And all hell did break loose, but on Monday, not on Friday. And so I was able to watch TV and do this and do that. And I knew that, okay, I'm going to be punished like you wouldn't believe on Monday, but I'm going to fucking enjoy the next 2 fucking days. And so that's how you kind of have to look at it, is you got to now pick and choose, the time when you figure out when you're going to suffer, you're going to have to find time to enjoy life and then figure out what's a good time to suffer. But you won't always know when you're going to suffer, because sometimes things come up, unexpectedly. But sometimes when you are given that respite, given that choice to not suffer, enjoy that moment of peace, because you know that suffering's going to come again until you release all of the damaged cells in your body. And so is there any kind of relationship to that story? Yeah. It's like, you can choose how you want to suffer. Because a person could suffer just knowing that they're going to get punished on a Monday from a Friday. You could suffer, but I wasn't going to allow the knowing that I was going to get punished on Monday get in the way of my weekend. And so, yeah, so when you know that something's going to happen, but you don't let it destroy you, and you still enjoy life, and then when suffering comes, you'll deal with it. That's kind of how you have to look at what's going on in this climate change, because suffering is mandatory. You have to suffer to survive in this fucking climate change. Because if you don't, you will find every way to rest in peace, and people are. People are so desperate. Like, they are in so much pain, and I don't know, there's no way I can help them. I can't help anyone suffering, because it will end up being rest in peace. And so now I have to come from a totally different point of view. You got to fucking suffer, because suffering means that you're alive, and you got to feed that suffering, and you got to pull out the fecal programming so that doesn't plague you anymore. Okay? And so now you can't try to end people's suffering. You can have sympathy and compassion, but I don't want to be a party to anyone's ending of their suffering, because it could mean their death. And that's how you have to look at it. Anyone that wants to end somebody's suffering, regardless of what it is, most likely at some point when all your friends and family are giving you all their different tinctures and remedies and this and that and pills and powder supplements, you will end up ending their suffering to a rest in peace situation because of how desperate they are. They have to be the one to go to the doctor and let the doctor do a state-sanctioned euthanasia. And they will. And they have HIPAA, and they have the whole, a hospital legal system behind them to support that. And so you don't want to be the one to end anyone's suffering, whether it's financially, but that's your choice if you do. But I do not want to be party to ending anyone's suffering. If anything, I want them to suffer, because then they will feed themselves, they will find a way to survive, they will be strategic, and they will vow to themselves, okay, in their body, mind, and spirit, never to get as bad as they got ever again. Because I will never get to where I was this last summer ever again, because that was the worst I've ever felt. We're even worse than the COVID back in 2020 when I was coughing up a lung. When you feel like you have lead in your joints and you can't even look out into the distance because the headache is so I'll tell you. And then you can't even eat, you can hardly drink. Nothing is going to give you relief. Nothing was giving me relief. And then when you can finally eat and make your own soup and eat spaghetti, and you're worshiping spaghetti, then you know that you actually have rebirthed yourself. When you can when you appreciate food for what it is. And I know a lot of you haven't been there yet because you're not trying to go there yet, because your body isn't ready for it. You still have yet to even scratch the surface of suffering. And so, if you don't add something like a little bit to people's suffering, how do you know if they're alive or not? Okay, so yeah, I'm a bitch. I'll say shit that will be really stinging, and people have blocked me for that. I don't blame them. If they don't want to ever suffer, it's hard to hear someone say a bunch of shit. But I'm not doing it to them. I'm just a little bit harsh, but I'm also, you're either gonna freaking pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and just grit your teeth through it and survive it, or you'll find every way to stop it and rest in peace. I mean, and I don't want to add any more death to anyone out there. So I'm not gonna be nice. I'll be polite, and I'll be, but sometimes I won't be nice because fuck. I don't want to dig myself a hole. But I mean, it's just, you should have compassion. I don't want you to fucking die. I want you to fucking grit your teeth and get mad and get pissed off and live. So why should I be nice and help you fucking out the door? Why? But it's the end of their line. If you're in hospice, I get it. Be nice. If you're in hospice, you're in a fucking hospice. So why should I be nice helping you out the door? So I'm not going to be nice. I'll be polite and respectful, but I'm not going to be nice and all lovey-dovey and hearts and fucking flowers. No, I want you to live, and I want you to want to live, but I don't have that choice. It's your choice, but I'm not going to help you out the door. I'm not going to end your suffering. You end your own suffering, or ask a doctor to end your suffering. And yeah, hospice or rest in peace will be in your future, but it's not going to be by my hand. So the way people know they are alive is when they have a voice, regardless of yes, they are suffering. You're not supposed to end somebody's suffering, so you let them suffer out their own hand, because they'll make every assumption in the world about you and everybody else. And so that's all my critics, They don't want to suffer. They think the salt's poison. Okay, fine. Then go rest in peace, or go find something to make you rest in peace because you don't want to suffer. Well, it's not my fault that you became that bad. Look to your genetic line. Look at your parents and say, okay, I'm inheriting every single defect that you ever gave me, and now I got to go and deal with it. So if you want to be mad, get mad at your parents, because they're the one that gave you your genetics. It's not the salt's fault. You can't take salt off the earth. You can't take ions off the earth. You can't take away energy off the earth. So who the fuck are you going to blame? You can't blame me unless you want a flatline, which is what people are begging for at this point. People are begging to be flatlined. And they will in this environment because it's very aggressive. And so, I'm sorry. And so the issue is people were never taught properly how to respond to suffering. And so they destroy themselves when the suffering becomes so astronomical. Yeah. Be careful when you have that peace, when you've taken all the different drugs and the remedies out there, because that peace will then, you may not wake up the next morning. That's what people are also facing. Is that, yeah, you'll get your relief, but it might be a dirt nap. So you can't help those who refuse to help themselves, who always lay the blame and have something to say about suffering. Those who are suffering the most will find every way to rest in peace. They will find every way. Because I tell you, what I felt the last summer and even the headaches, if they were 10 times as worse and I didn't really have the body to deal with it, yeah, I would be like, yeah, I'm done. I can't do it. And so I don't blame them, and that's fine. Then you should be deemed in hospice, so then somebody could end your suffering without totally destroying you with morphine, and then you die in your sleep. That's if you're at that point, fine. If you're at that point where you're in hospice, then I get it. You shouldn't be on Facebook. You should be sitting and saying goodbye to everybody on your deathbed if you truly want to end that kind of astronomical suffering. And I'm not trying to send anyone to hospice. So either you suffer and you feed it, or you suffer in silence, or you get off of Facebook and go around and hang out with your friends and family and say your last goodbyes, because that's where you're going to end up. So suffering means that you're alive and you'll do everything you can to only suffer a little bit, not a lot. And so I'm fine with suffering a little bit. Okay, blowing my nose and pulling the poop out every so often, not a big deal. Okay, dealing with my dog and watching her go through her processes is a type of suffering because we're in uncharted territory. Okay, but I see the scientific logic behind what I'm doing, and nothing is instantaneous. That's the thing about our society is we want everything right fucking now. We want to have good health now. We want to have this now. We want to have that now. And so no one wants to wait to actually be a whole person. They want all the gifts and all the baubles and all the great life and the great experiences right fucking now. But you'll pay for it. You'll pay with your life. And so suffering means that you're alive, that you'll do everything you can to only suffer a little bit, not a lot. You cannot escape evolution in a diverse world such as this. And so suffering right now, even a little bit, is mandatory. But I'm suffering a whole lot. Well, you're paying the price for your genetic line. If you want to get mad at your dead dad or your dead mom. But they're gone, so now you have to be the one to redirect. And if you're going to repeat the same mistakes that your parents did, then you're going to end up just like them, but faster in this environment. And so the pain that you are dealing with right now says that your body's trying to push out the weaknesses, push out the damaged cells. And if you're trying to stop it, and you're keeping those damaged cells within you, guess what's going to happen? You're going to end up just like your parents, but in the ground sooner. Because in this environment, anything is possible. You want to stop suffering? That's called flatlined. Rest in peace. You want to lessen suffering? You got to face the fire. So I'm not really suffering now. We're in climate change. I hear sirens every so often. I'm not really in any pain. I'm sleeping okay. I mean, the only suffering I'm going through is with my dog, because I have to watch her go through this process, just like she had to watch me last summer go through my process. Okay? And so, I wrote the book, so I'm not even answering my trolls anymore. They can read it or not. They have the choice. Everything in that book, you can Google everything I wrote in that book. I put some links in there as a bibliography, but not really. Most of any kind of credits that I gave were either in the footnotes, but everything that I wrote in that book, you can Google some of the stuff in there. Okay? Autophagy, epiphysis, whatever I wrote. Because it's another truth, another arm of the Hydra. And so you will see those who are suffering astronomically are looking for anything to be at peace, even if it means at some point, sooner or later, they will rest in peace. And in this environment, again, it will be sooner. When you're looking to end your suffering astronomically right now, you will end up rest in peace. The Jewish people of antiquity understood suffering and how to use the suffering to their benefit. And that's the whole Rosicrucian. That's the Jewish mystics, the Christian Gnostics, and the Hermetics. They understand the power of suffering. They understand the power of perception. They understand the power of binary arguments. When someone's saying that, when I'm talking about, okay, you don't have to die, let's promote life, and here's how you do it, you can say that I'm afraid of death. No, there's another side of it, that I'm actually trying to stay alive in an environment that's trying to destroy me. So there's two ways you can look at what I'm doing. That's the whole Rosicrucian, where you're allowing people to only think one way. They can't think of another argument around the same action. They only think of one argument around some kind of action or energy or belief system. That's politics, that's religion, and that's scientific dogmas. When you can't even argue another point to the same person, place, or thing or belief system. That's somebody going through life with blinders on. They cannot even perceive that there's another argument besides their own. They can't even go outside of their own belief system, much less have tolerance for the world out there that is so diverse, because of people are so homogenized in their little perspective worlds. And they pride themselves in that homogenization. And so, yeah, they will have a hard time hearing anything besides their own argument. And so it seems many religions have lost sight of their roots and allowed the system to subvert their intentions to the power of suffering. And so when you're like praising a doctor or a nurse for ending your suffering, well, are you praising the hospice person to give your mom the last bit of life or the last bit of morphine so it ends her life? Well, of course, because you were trained like, oh, she's suffering, let me end her suffering. And so, yeah, we've been praising doctors and nurses to end our suffering, even a little bit of suffering. And then that suffering compounds itself. And so now there's a lot more suffering. And then you're taking a stronger drug, and a lot more suffering, taking a stronger, even stronger drug, until morphine and hospice. You see, we have conditioned our children not to want to suffer. We've conditioned ourselves not to want to suffer. We don't even know how to pick and choose when to suffer, when not to suffer, because we just don't understand it. But I understood it as a kid because, because I wasn't going to ruin my fucking weekend over homework. And so I'll suffer on Monday versus Friday. And, I know my mom was like, what the fuck? This girl knew she was lying to me. She knew I was going to find out on Monday, but yet she still lied to me on a Friday. Why did she do that? Because I knew it doesn't matter. I'm going to suffer anyways. So either suffer now or suffer later. I'm going to fucking suffer. So let me just enjoy my life. Let me just enjoy this now. When I gave myself up to suffering because I knew it was going to happen at some point. And I didn't want to do my homework. So if I don't want to do my homework and I don't want to suffer because I'm not doing the homework and lying, well, I might as well just take the brunt later on and not suffer for the next couple days, just suffer next week. But that's how demented I was as a kid. I was like that. I was okay with being punished. It didn't hurt to me if I ever got spanked. I wanted her to hit me fucking harder because it didn't hurt. Okay? And that's the thing, some kids, they can handle that kind of freaking shit and they will take it on and they will suffer and they still be like, yeah, do it again. Yeah, do it again. And they almost daring you to actually destroy them. Because I actually was daring them to destroy me because at this point I was like, fuck this, fuck it. If that's where it comes down to where I'm going to die over not doing my homework, then I will fucking die for not doing my homework. I'm not saying I was going to go there, but that's the mentality that I had. Now, when I'm out there in the real world, not under a parental supervision, and someone wants to fuck with me, oh, believe me, all hell will break loose. I know no boundaries. So don't fuck with me. I'm not trying to be like that, but that's kind of how I've had to be. You have to be. When you're always defending yourself because you're different, you have to be that way. You don't want to be that way, but you got to be that way. So the system let you get so bad, and the system allowed your parents to destroy themselves systematically, so that way you had no choice but to pay for the sins of your father and your mother. Some people could not afford the debt, and so they gave up their life. And that's what's going on. People are going into hospice left and right. They're just giving up because they can't afford to pay the debt of their predecessors. Well, they all had a great life. They had all their riches and their baubles and their experiences and their travels, and they also were getting the cures and the surgeries in a slower environment. So they got lucky in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, so to speak. But then the children, the offspring in the 2000s are now dealing with such deficits, and they're like, what the hell? It's because you're paying the price of your parents. They had fun, or your grandparents. They had fun way back in 1960, 1950. And now you're paying the price for it because you have less than what they had, biologically. And so now it's time either you become whole again or you pay the debt of your parents. Because what are you going to do? Suck the life out of the system because of your deficits? I mean, that's kind of cold, but that's kind of what they're saying too. Is that you don't have enough really to contribute to the system. Your parents had everything. Your grandparents had everything. They are the ones that laid out this whole thing. And what are you going to do? But you have deficits. You have issues. What are you going to do for society? Well, then that's how the system says those that can't handle this environment are expendable. And that's Mother Nature picking and choosing, not anyone specific. That's why you have to get your kids to be whole again, because they will pay the debt of the past, and they are. People are suffering astronomically. So maybe it's time to start understanding what it means to pay back the debt of your genetic line without going bankrupt. I paid the debt to society and paid the debt of my genetic line, and I'll tell you what, it was a hefty price to pay. The pain, the isolation, and the ridicule. Oh yeah, I was ridiculed as a kid too for being different. I was ridiculed as an adult, and I'm almost 50. I don't feel like I'm almost 50, but I'm almost 50. But it was worth it. I am free, and I'm not resting in peace, and I'm also not chasing the dragon either. And so anyone who has any criticism against my belief system in 2018 obviously has read the book, and even if they don't agree with me and the book, they can choose not to do it. They can choose to find every way to rest in peace, to end their suffering, because in this climate change, suffering is mandatory. And some people will find every way to stop the pain, even if it means resting in peace. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you sooner, but I was up against a whole lot. As you know, I was up against you, and I was up against myself. And so, yeah, may the odds be in your favor. We are in the Hunger Games. Many parents are starving, and so are their children. You could have a full dinner table, loaded tree, and many friends and family, and you could still be starving. If only people knew. And so only a select few know because they chose to know. And so they chose to know. Don't let the system back you into a corner because of your belief system. Your belief system has been weaponized against you. And even if you are right, people will die being right than being alive wrong. It's okay to change your belief system, your lifestyle, your politics, your religion, and your scientific dogmas. No one is forcing you to believe what you believe except for you, because of your pride, your ego, and how much investment you put into your belief system, even at the expense of your children and your family. And getting to the hearts and minds of everyone is like trying to get through the Great Wall of China. Nearly impossible. So I look for the chinks in the armor, and that's who I speak to. Because some of you do have chinks in your armor of your belief system. And man, you allow me to get in, and that's fucking awesome. You have a chance. Not everybody's going to actually make it that I'm getting to, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a chance. You have every chance in the world. So everyone else, you can resist me, ignore me. You have nothing left until you have nothing left, because you gave all your energy to resisting me and holding fast to your belief, your politics, religion, and scientific dogmas. So just remember, the medical holistic system is based upon the papal states, the church. And you see how Catholicism has spread all over the world. Nothing wrong with it. But the alchemical temporary human life system is a belief system that is antiquated, but maybe it needs to evolve. Okay, so when they're going like this, I forget which side, like this, and the cross like this, that's about balance. So this is the upside down cross, and then the cross is upside right. That they're not doing anything satanic, it's just balance. And I wrote that in my book, that there's the upside down cross and there's the upside right cross. And it's a crossroads. You're either going to have a misfolded protein and become unbalanced, or you have a folded protein, a regular folded protein and become balanced. And then you can, be over here in the 6 sides of Judaism, right? The 3 folded proteins, where you be at the crossroads, up and down, of instability, or you can be really unstable and be satanic and have a misfolded protein, all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of allegory and symbolism in science and politics and all that stuff. So all of it's connected, but you got to get out of your homogenized way of looking at things. Okay, you can't save the world. You can only save yourself. And so, of course, I'm not going to reach everyone. So not everyone will get the opportunity of this type of new lease on life, and obviously. So this is why the system is encouraging diversity, so that way pockets of the world can have their own communities without somebody trying to convert them. Why do you think many of these hospitals are religious-based, Catholic-based? Because they are based in dogma. They are based in taking away life force systematically and using your proteins for the next generation. They have innovation as well, but at the expense of a lot of people who are not aware. And when you choose not to be aware, you have no one to blame but yourself. When you choose not to be aware, when you choose to only think of your own beliefs and not consider another truth, then you have blinded yourself to a lot of stuff. And people are, and they have, and they will. And you can't do anything about it except just watch it unfold and then say to yourself, I told you so. I told you so. I knew it. And you can't say anything else. You can't say, I told you so out there, because that would be cold. That would be mean. Because, yeah, when people are dying in this environment, you can't be a bitch. And so you try to get to people before they go down those roads, but it might be too late for a lot. I can't say who, because everyone has a chance to redirect. But do they have the will? Do they have the time? I purposely isolated myself for 2 years so I could take the time to deal with my shit and write a book in the meantime too. But I sacrificed that part of my world so I could do this. And I'm going to sacrifice 1 more year. But I will also try to hang out with my husband too. Oh, I will. I'll go fishing with him. But I got to get my dog healthy first before I do anything else. My dog is now next on the list to make sure that she is okay. And then hang out with my husband going fishing, and he will figure it out for himself. What he wants to do. Because he's an individual. I can't convert him. So, all right. So just realize that suffering, there is power in the suffering. If you don't want to ever suffer at all, then it's rest in peace. And in this environment, with now the Hellhound COVID variant, that means the frequencies are going to be even astronomical. The frequencies are going to be astronomical. And you will feel it. And if you try to stop and end the suffering, good luck. Good luck. All right, bye.